Hold on to your hats, folks, because the tariff man strikes again. That's right, President Trump has decided to grace the world with yet another round of tariffs. This time, steel and aluminum imports are in the crosshairs, slapped with a hefty 25% tax. Starting March 4th, 2025, anything made of steel or aluminum coming into the US will face this new levy. That's right, no exceptions. Not even for our good friends up north in Canada, who happen to be our biggest supplier of both metals. What's the reason for this sudden urge to tax imports, you ask? Well, according to the Commander-in-Chief, it's all about making America rich again. The idea is that by making foreign steel and aluminum more expensive, American companies will buy from domestic producers instead. And just in case you thought this was a one-off, think again. Trump has hinted that this could be just the beginning. Pharmaceuticals and computer chips might be next in line for the tariff treatment. Buckle up, everyone, because things are about to get interesting. Now, before we all start stockpiling aluminum foil and steel-toed boots, let's take a step back. Is this just classic Trump throwing a tariff tantrum to get his way? Or is there a method to this madness? Some experts believe this could be a negotiating tactic. Remember back in 2018 when Trump imposed similar tariffs? He eventually caved and negotiated exemptions for several countries. But here's the thing, Trump's unpredictability is legendary. One minute he's slapping tariffs on everyone, the next he's having a Twitter love-in with a foreign leader. So is he bluffing this time? Or is he dead serious about this whole tariffing our way to prosperity thing? Honestly, folks, it's anyone's guess. One thing's for sure, Trump seems to love a good trade war. He's already gone toe-to-toe with China and threatened tariffs on Canada and Mexico. This could be just the opening salvo in a much larger trade battle. Okay, let's say, just for a moment, that Trump's plan actually works. American steel and aluminum producers are suddenly flooded with orders, factories are humming, and jobs are being created left and right. Sounds great, right? Well, maybe. But there's always a catch. See, when you artificially inflate the price of a raw material like steel, it has a ripple effect throughout the entire economy. Everything from cars to washing machines to beer cans suddenly gets more expensive to produce. And who ends up footing the bill for all this? You guessed it, the American consumer. So, while some workers in the steel and aluminum industries might be celebrating, everyone else could end up paying the price. And let's not forget about the potential impact on American businesses that rely on imported steel and aluminum. These companies could be forced to raise prices, cut jobs, or even shut down altogether. So much for making America great again, right? Now, let's talk about our neighbors to the north. Canada, as we mentioned earlier, is the biggest supplier of steel and aluminum to the US. These tariffs are a direct hit to their economy, and they're not taking it lying down. Canadian officials have called the tariffs unjustified and threatened retaliation. And they're not just talking tough. Canada has already imposed retaliatory tariffs on billions of dollars worth of American goods in the past. Remember that whole trade war thing we were talking about earlier? Well, things could get pretty heated between the US and Canada if this isn't resolved quickly. And nobody wants to see a trade war break out between two countries that share the world's longest undefended border. Section 5, Market Jitters, Uncertainty Looms Large. So, how are the markets reacting to all this tariff turmoil? Well, the initial response has been muted, to say the least. It seems like investors are still trying to figure out if Trump is serious this time or if he's just playing another round of tariff roulette. Uncertainty is the name of the game right now. Businesses hate uncertainty, consumers hate uncertainty, and markets really hate uncertainty. The longer this drags on, the more likely it is that businesses will start putting off investments, consumers will hold off on big purchases, and the stock market will take a nosedive. Nobody wins in that scenario. Section 6. Echoes of 2018, a familiar tune. This whole steel and aluminum tariff thing feels a bit like déjà vu, doesn't it? That's because it's remarkably similar to what happened back in 2018. Trump slapped tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, causing a global uproar. He argued that it was necessary to protect national security and boost domestic production. Sound familiar? But after months of negotiations and threats of retaliation, Trump eventually backed down and removed most of the tariffs. So is this time any different? Well, for one thing, the global trade landscape is a lot more fragile now than it was in 2018. The COVID-19 pandemic, supply chain disruptions, and the war in Ukraine have all taken their toll. Adding more fuel to the fire with these tariffs could have unintended consequences that ripple throughout the global economy. Section 7. The price we pay. Higher costs on the horizon. Let's be honest, folks. Tariffs are essentially a tax on consumers. When you slap a 25% tariff on imported steel and aluminum, those costs get passed down the line to businesses, and ultimately, to you and me. Think about everything that's made with steel and aluminum: cars, appliances, construction materials, beer cans. The list goes on and on. All of these things could become more expensive if these tariffs remain in place. Now, the Trump administration argues that these tariffs are necessary to protect American jobs and industries. But at what cost? Are we willing to accept higher prices for everyday goods in the name of protectionism? That's a question each and every one of us has to answer for ourselves. But one thing's for sure, there's no such thing as a free lunch, and someone always ends up paying the price. Section 8. Trade wars. A dangerous game of dominoes. Remember that whole trade war thing we talked about earlier? Well, these tariffs on steel and aluminum could be the first domino to fall in a much larger trade war. If Canada retaliates with tariffs of its own, as it has threatened to do, it could trigger a chain reaction. Other countries could get involved, imposing tariffs on American goods in retaliation for the tariffs on steel and aluminum. Before you know it, we're in a full-blown trade war, with tariffs flying back and forth like ping-pong balls. And who loses in a trade war? Everyone. Trade wars disrupt supply chains, increase prices for consumers, and stifle economic growth. In the interconnected global economy, we're all in this together. Starting a trade war is like playing with fire. It might seem like a good idea at the time, but it's only a matter of time before someone gets burned. Section 9. The bottom line. Trump's trade tango continues. So, there you have it, folks. Trump's at it again, tangoing with the global trade system. These new tariffs on steel and aluminum are certainly shaking things up, but it remains to be seen what the long-term consequences will be. Will this be a repeat of 2018, with Trump eventually backing down after a lot of bluster and threats? Or is he serious this time about using tariffs to reshape the global trade landscape in America's favor? Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure, things are about to get a whole lot more interesting in the world of international trade. Buckle up, everyone. It's going to be a bumpy ride.